it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Critters on the Farm. And I'm actually going to be starting a little bit different today because I want to do some reverse stamping, or it's also called mirror stamping, by using my Waffle Flower Mini Media Mat to stamp out my image with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. I'm going to stamp that directly onto my mat and try to be careful not to slip or move that block so the ink doesn't smear. And then I will nestle a piece of white cardstock in the corner, rub the back of that, and use that to pick up my image. Now you can see that it didn't stamp as crisply as I would have liked. Because that is a second generation stamping. Technically, the first was on the mat, the second is the mat to the paper. So what I'm going to do to fix that is take a Memento Tuxedo Black marker and trace over the stamped lines. This is a Copic friendly ink. It's the same ink that's in the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, so you can still use it with your Copic markers. I will say that both my ink pad and my marker were a little bit on the drier side. I didn't realize until I was already well into this. So I did have to work a little bit harder to get a crisp black line. So I definitely want to replace this marker with a new one and re-ink my ink pad, but it does work, and especially because I'm going to be coloring this little chicken in some darker colors, it will disguise any of those little imperfections. So I'm just working my way around that, following the stamped line, and what I'm going to end up with is an image that is in the reverse or mirrored to the one on the left, which is the actual stamped image. So I've gone ahead and stamped out the rest of my little chicks and my hay and the other hen, and now I'm going to begin Copic coloring. So the one on the left I wanted to be a little brown hen, so I'm coloring her with E21, E23, and E25. I started with that E25 and laid in some shadows, accentuating her tail area and the underside of her wing and her belly, and then blending that out with the E23. And then I'll come in with the E21 and use that as my highlight. Now the E21 did push the E23 back quite a bit, so I'm going to go back in with that E23 and flick in a little extra color, and then blend that out with the E21 once again. I did a second layer of her off screen, and now moving on to my other hen, and I wanted her to be black, so I'm using W3, W5, and W7 and coloring her pretty much the same way, just in the reverse, using the darkest shade first, that W7, to lay in my shadows, adding that shadow up under her wing to create a little bit of separation away from the body, and then blending out with the W5, and then leaving a little space for the highlighted shade, the W3. So you can see I am making sure to go over the edge of that W5 and really break up that pigment, get it nice and soft. I'll go back to my W5 and add a bit more color, and then blend that out once again with the W3, and then do a second layer on her off screen as well. For their combs and wattles, I'm using R24 and R29, just doing a little quick shading with that R29 and blending it out with the R24, and again just swapping the direction that I'm going in when I get to the image that's facing the other direction. And then for the little chicks, I'm going to use Y11, Y13, and Y15. I also use the Y15 on the little hens' beaks. And then for the chicks, I'm going to color in the back of their body with the Y15, and then blend up with the Y13 and use the Y11 on their faces to keep them nice and light. So I just did 3 at a time to make it really quick and easy, because they're super tiny images, so it's really easy to tackle a few of them at once. And then for their beaks, I'm using YR04, just the one shade because it's such a small area. For the hay, I wanted to do something that was not similar to the chicks so that they would really stand out against it. So I chose Y21, Y26, and Y28. And that Y28 especially has a lot of like a brown tone or like a tan color. So I feel like this is a good combination for hay. And then that Y26 has a lot of gold to it. If I were to color like Pirate's Gold or something, I would probably use these shades as well. And then the Y21 is going to finish off that combo as my highlight shade. And then I will kind of work back and forth and add a bit more texture with some flicks of color just to kind of make it look like hay, you know, so it has that looks like it's made up of all those different strands. So I really worked back and forth on these a few times to create that texture and give it, you know, that variance of color that I wanted, and especially to deepen up the bottom edge. Some of those little chicks are going to be standing right in front of the hay, so I wanted to make sure that they had enough contrast and, you know, that they didn't just blend right in with that hay. So that's why I took so much time to develop that color. I'll do the second one off screen to save you some time, and then I'm moving on to my little chicken eggs, and I thought I would do those with some browns. So I use E50, E51, and E53. Just a little shading with the E53 and then blending up with the E51 and leaving a little highlight with that E50 at the top. And I did do a second layer on those as well. That one I left in the video because it was really quick. And then I trimmed these images out with their matching dies. So I created a standard size A2 top folding card with Blue Jay cardstock from Lawn Fawn. And then I cut out 2 of the 4 square backdrop portraits in the same color. So I'm going to glue those down to the front of my card, just using a thin bead of glue all the way around so that that is adhered nicely. So I'm just lining that up with the edges and smoothing that down into place. And then I'm going to grab the second one and just repeat that process. And that's just to build up that frame a bit and, you know, create like a nice level of dimension from the pieces that I'm going to pop inside those squares. So I'm going to layer this one right over top. Just carefully lining that up again to make sure that everything is nice and straight so that the insert pieces pop in nicely. So for those, I'm using some Lawn Fawn Mermaid cardstock, and I'm going to just add the glue directly inside the openings, as I think that's the easiest way to adhere them quickly. So then I will pop those little pieces right inside, just making sure that they are pressed down firmly. So I've got one for each little window, and those are going to represent the sky. And then I have die cut this piece out of some cilantro cardstock as well. So I will cut those in, not in half exactly, it's actually a little bit smaller than half, but I'm trying to just create like a little grass border there. So just using a little bit of each one. And then I will glue those down in each of those windows. So the look that I'm going for with this one is actually like kind of a comic book style where you have the different windows that each have their own little thing going on, but all together they kind of make up one story. So I think these are kind of fun and different to do. For my sentiment, I wanted to heat emboss on some narwhal cardstock, so I just treated that with my EK Success powder tool, and then I'm actually masking off half of my sentiment, It says Hello Chickadee, but I just want the part that says Chickadee. So I just covered it with a bit of Post-it tape and then inked it up and then peel off that Post-it tape before I press that down. So I get a nice impression with just that one word. And then I'll coat that with some white embossing powder, tap off any excess from the back. And then I will bring my heat gun to that. I like to heat it up from the back first to help eliminate any warping, and then bring it to the front until that powder is all white and smooth and shiny. And then I wipe it clean with a microfiber cloth just to remove that extra powder from the powder tool. I'm going to create an insert for my card, which I have die cut using the outside in Stitch Rectangle Stackables, and I'm stamping in Blue Jay ink. And I wanted to stamp one of the chicks standing on top of the hay bale, but I realized I was going to have to stamp them separately so that his legs would be touching. So that's what I did. And now I'm ready to start assembling. So I'm going to add my insert to the inside of my card, just lining that up so that I have an equal border on all four sides, and then smoothing that down into place. And then I decided that I wanted one more layer of this frame from the Foursquare backdrop portrait. So I'm going to add one more just to create a little bit of extra height there to separate it from those background insert pieces. So I'll just smooth that into place, and then I'm going to pull in my images. And I'm going to start with the two hay bales since they're the largest, and I'm going to put one in the top right corner and then one in the bottom left. So they'll be kitty corner from each other. I almost always like to adhere my images from largest to smallest, just because I feel like if you take up that space that you know you're going to need first, then it's really easy to fill in the extra spaces with the smaller images. But it's a lot harder if you've already adhered the smaller images to make room for the larger ones if you didn't leave the space there. So next I'm doing my hens, and I did the brown one in the top left, and I'm going to do the black one down in the bottom right corner. So now that I have created some balance and symmetry on the card, which I really appreciate, now I can kind of have fun with my smaller images and really use them to fill up space and create more movement in the scene and kind of break up a little bit of that symmetry and add some whimsy and just a little touch of chaos, because if you've ever been on a farm where there are lots of little chicks running around, it is kind of just like a fun kind of chaos. They just are, here and there darting all over, trying to stay with their mother, getting more adventurous as, they get a little older. My husband's family lived on a farm in Germany, and my mother-in-law loved her chickens. So when my boys were small, she got a whole bunch of little chicks, and it was such a fun experience watching the kids kind of their eyes light up at these adorable little creatures that just kind of ran all over the place, and they were just so much fun to watch and interact with. So this card kind of took me back to those special memories. So I also added a few eggs to just complete the story, and now I'm going to work on my sentiment. I die cut the word hello from the scripty words, the scripty hello die, and I used some chili pepper cardstock for that so I could have a nice bright red sentiment that would tie in to the red on the hens. So I'm going to add that down to the bottom, and I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle, and that's so I can leave room for the rest of the sentiment, which I die cut with the everyday sentiment banners, and I'm going to adhere that down, kind of overlapping the bottom edge of the L and O. And I know some of you are going to be shocked, but I'm not going to use any Stardust stickles on today's card. Just didn't seem like the right place to have glitter at the farmyard. So I'm going to add a few little details with a white gel pen instead. This is something I'm not super comfortable with, but I decided to give it a go. So I added a little texture to their wings, and then I also decided to add some more texture to the hay bales by doing a few little lines and streaks there just to indicate, you know, all the separate fibers that are making up those hay bales. So just did a few of those. I didn't want them to be too dark, so I kind of tapped them with my finger to eliminate some of that ink. And that is going to complete my card for today. So I'll lift that up so you can see that detail up close and give you another peek at the inside. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know this is an older set, but sometimes I like revisiting the old ones. They are oldies but goodies to me. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. You can ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. If you're interested in any of the products that I used, you'll find them listed and linked in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. I hope you all have an amazing day. Bye-bye.